Have you ever wondered why some people seem to learn English very fast, while others study for years and still feel stuck? Maybe you have asked yourself, what is their secret? Do they have a special talent? Or is there something simple that anyone can do to make English learning easier? Today, I want to share with you the best English learning tips that really work. These are not difficult or complicated methods. These are small, clear, and simple steps that you can use in your daily life. Even if you are a complete beginner, these tips will help you understand English better, speak with more confidence, and enjoy the process. Stay with me until the end, because I promise these tips can change the way you learn forever and give you the motivation to keep going. Chapter 1. Listening is the first door. When I first started learning English, I did not know how to speak even a single sentence. Every time I heard someone speaking English, I felt lost and afraid. The words sounded strange, and I could not understand anything. I thought maybe English was too hard for me, and I almost gave up. But then, something changed. One day, a teacher told me, "If you want to learn English, start by listening." At first, I did not believe it. I thought, how can listening help me if I don't understand? But I decided to try, and that small decision opened the first door to learning English. I began to listen every single day. I listened to English songs on the radio, even though I did not know the meaning of the words. I listened to short English stories online. I listened to simple conversations in English movies. At first, I felt confused. The words came too quickly, and I understood almost nothing. But I kept going. I told myself, don't stop. Just keep listening. And slowly, something wonderful started to happen. I began to hear words again and again. The same sounds returned, and I started to recognize them. The words that once felt like noise began to feel familiar, like small friends that came back to visit me each day. Listening is powerful because it trains your ears before your mouth. Think about a baby. A baby listens to their parents for many months before they say their first word. They don't study grammar or read books. They just listen. And then one day, without warning, they begin to speak. Learning English works the same way. When you listen often, your brain becomes used to the rhythm, the sound, and the music of English. You may not understand everything, but your brain is working in the background, connecting the sounds and preparing you to speak. I remember one special moment that changed everything for me. I was listening to a simple story about a boy and his dog. I had listened to it many times before, but one evening as I sat in my room, I suddenly understood a whole sentence. The boy said, "My dog is very happy today." It was a simple sentence, but for me, it was a miracle. For the first time, the sounds were clear, the meaning was clear, and I felt proud of myself. That moment was a spike in my journey, because I realized that listening works. If I could understand one sentence, then I could understand more in the future. My fear began to disappear, and I felt free. Listening every day builds confidence step by step. The more you listen, the easier it becomes. In the beginning, it is normal to feel lost, but if you keep going, one day you will notice that your ears are catching words and phrases without effort. It is like learning to ride a bicycle. At first, you fall many times, but then one day you find your balance, and suddenly you are riding smoothly. That is exactly what happens with listening. One of the best ways to practice listening is through stories. Stories are special because they have meaning, emotion, and pictures in your mind. When you listen to a story, you don't just hear words, you feel them. I used to listen to simple children's stories in English. The language was easy, and the voices were slow. Sometimes I listened while walking, sometimes before sleeping. Slowly, these stories became part of me. I could repeat some sentences without even trying. Songs are also a wonderful tool for listening. When I was learning, I often listened to English songs, even if I only understood a few words. Music has rhythm, and rhythm makes words easier to remember. I remember one song that had the word beautiful many times. After listening to that song again and again, I learned the word without studying it. The music made it natural.
Songs stay in your mind, and they help you remember words without hard work. Another helpful way is to listen to daily conversations. Movies, cartoons, or even short YouTube videos are great. When I watched cartoons, the voices were clear, and the words were simple. I didn't understand everything, but I caught a few words, and every time I caught one new word, I felt like a winner. That small success gave me energy to keep learning. Listening also teaches you how words are pronounced. Sometimes when we read, we don't know how to say the word. But when we listen, we hear the correct sound, the correct stress, and the correct rhythm. This makes speaking easier later. I remember reading the word enough and saying it wrongly. But after listening to someone use it, I learned the right sound, and I never forgot it. Listening saved me from many mistakes. So if you are a beginner, remember this. Listening is the first door. It is the door that opens the world of English for you. Don't worry if you don't understand everything. Don't stop because it feels hard. Just keep listening every day, even for 10 minutes. Slowly, you will feel the change. One day, you will hear a word, then a sentence, then a full conversation. And when that day comes, you will smile and know that your journey has truly begun. Listening is not only practice, it is also courage. Every time you listen, you are telling yourself, I can do this. And that belief is more powerful than anything else. When I lost my fear through listening, I felt like I had wings. I knew I could fly into English with confidence. And you can too. Chapter 2. Speaking Without Fear. After I had spent many months listening, something inside me began to change. The sounds of English no longer felt like noise. I could recognize words, sometimes even short sentences, and this gave me hope. But then a new challenge appeared. I realized that listening alone was not enough. If I wanted to truly use English, I needed to open my mouth and speak. And that was when fear returned. Speaking was harder than listening, because it was no longer about just hearing. It was about me producing the words, me showing my voice, and me taking a risk. The first time I tried to speak English, my hands were shaking. I was in class, and the teacher asked everyone to introduce themselves in English. I knew a few sentences. My name is, I am from, I like. But when my turn came, my mind went completely blank. My heart was beating fast, and my mouth felt dry. Somehow, I managed to say, my name is, and then silence. Everyone looked at me, and I wanted to disappear. That day, I promised myself I would never speak again. But then I remembered the lesson I had learned from listening. In the beginning, listening was difficult too. I felt lost, but I kept going, and slowly I improved. Maybe speaking was the same. Maybe I only needed to practice again and again until the fear disappeared. So I gave myself a new rule. Speak English every single day, even if it is only one sentence. At first, I spoke alone in my room. I looked in the mirror and said simple phrases. Good morning. How are you? I am fine. I like tea. My sentences were not perfect, but they were mine. I was building my confidence step by step. Talking to myself was like training before a big game. It prepared me to face real conversations. Later, I started to use what I call shadowing. Shadowing means you listen to a sentence and repeat it immediately, like an echo. I listened to short audio clips or videos, and I repeated the sentences out loud, trying to copy the sound, the rhythm, and the speed. At first, it was difficult. My tongue felt heavy, and my words were not clear. But after many days, my mouth became faster, my voice became stronger, and my fear started to fade away. One of the most powerful spikes in my journey happened when I accidentally spoke English with a stranger. I was at a train station, and a tourist asked me, "Excuse me, do you know where the bus stop is?" For a moment, I froze. My old fear returned, but then, without thinking, I said, "Yes, go straight and turn left." The tourist smiled and said, "Thank you." That small moment felt like magic. I had just helped someone using English. I did not use perfect grammar, but I communicated, and that was enough. After that day, I knew I could speak without fear. The truth is, speaking is not about being perfect. It is about being brave. Many learners wait until they know all the rules before speaking, but that day never comes. You don't need perfect grammar to start. You don't need big vocabulary to start. You only need courage to open your mouth. Mistakes are not a problem. They are your teachers. Every mistake shows you what to improve, and every word you speak makes your next word easier. I also learned a small trick that made speaking fun. I turned daily life into practice. When I made tea, I said in English, "I am making tea." When I walked outside, I said, "I am going to the shop." I described my actions in simple English. Nobody was listening, but I was speaking. This habit gave me daily practice, and slowly my tongue became comfortable with English. Another way I reduced my fear was by speaking with friends who were also learners. We made an agreement. We would only speak English together for 10 minutes every day. At first, we laughed a lot because our sentences were broken and our words were strange. But slowly, we improved together. Speaking with someone who also makes mistakes makes you feel safe. It reminds you that you are not alone. The fear of speaking usually comes from the thought, "What if people laugh at me?" But here is the truth. Most people don't laugh. In fact, most people are kind and patient when they see you are trying. I remember speaking with a shopkeeper in English for the first time. I made many mistakes, but instead of laughing, he smiled and helped me. That day, I understood that fear lives only in the mind. Once you speak, the fear disappears. Speaking is also about creating small victories. The first victory is saying one sentence. The second victory is having a short conversation. The third victory is making a friend in English. Each small victory builds your confidence, and confidence is the key to learning. When you are confident, your brain works better, your words flow easier, and your learning becomes faster. So if you feel afraid to speak, remember my story. I was once silent, shy, and scared. But by practicing daily, by talking to myself, by shadowing, and by speaking with friends, I broke the wall of fear. Today, I can speak freely, and you can too. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you know everything. Start today with one simple sentence. Say it out loud. Then tomorrow, say 2 sentences. Day by day, your fear will shrink and your voice will grow stronger. Speaking without fear is not a gift. It is a habit. And like every habit, it begins with one small step. Take that step today, and you will discover the freedom that comes when your voice finds its place in English. Chapter 3. Reading Brings New Worlds. After I had trained my ears with listening and built my courage with speaking, I discovered another secret door in my English journey. This door was reading. At first, I thought reading was only for advanced learners. I imagined long books, difficult grammar, and big words I could not understand. But soon I learned that reading is not about being advanced. It is about opening windows to new worlds. Every page you read takes you somewhere new. Reading is not only about learning English. It is about traveling without moving. I still remember the very first English book I ever read. It was not a big novel. It was a small graded reader, a simple story written for beginners. The sentences were short, the words were easy, and there were pictures to help me. At the beginning, I read slowly. Sometimes I had to stop and check the dictionary. But the more I read, the more I understood. And something magical happened. The characters in the book began to feel alive. I wanted to know what happened to them, so I kept reading. Suddenly, reading was no longer just study. It was adventure. That is the power of reading. When you listen, you hear sounds. When you speak, you use your voice. But when you read, you enter into the minds of people, into their stories, their feelings, and their dreams. Reading gives you new vocabulary, yes, but it also gives you imagination. It shows you how words can create pictures in your head. One of the spikes in my reading journey came when I realized I could read without translating. In the beginning, I translated every single word into my first language. It was slow and tiring. But one day, as I read a short story, I noticed I was not translating anymore. I was just reading and understanding directly in English. That moment felt like freedom. I felt like I was thinking in English, not in my own language. That was when I knew reading had changed my brain. Reading also taught me the rhythm of sentences. English has a special way of joining words together, and reading makes you feel it. For example, when I read dialogues, I could almost hear the characters speaking in my head. The more I read, the more natural the sentences felt. Later, when I spoke, these sentences came back to me easily. Reading gave me ready-made patterns. and speaking became smoother. In the beginning, I chose very simple texts, children's books, short articles, and easy stories. I did not worry about understanding every single word. Instead, I focused on enjoying the story. If I did not know a word, I guessed the meaning from the picture or the sentence. Sometimes I wrote new words down and reviewed them later. But I never let one difficult word stop me. I told myself, keep reading. The meaning will come, and it always did. Another beautiful thing about reading is repetition. When you read often, you see the same words again and again. Each time you see a word, it becomes stronger in your memory. I learned many common words like because, before, and after, just by seeing them many times in different stories. I did not need flashcards. The stories themselves were my flashcards. Reading also gave me motivation in a special way. When I listened, I felt like a learner. When I spoke, I felt like a beginner. But when I read, I felt like an explorer. I could enter a new world every evening before bed. Some stories made me laugh, some made me cry, and some made me think deeply about life. These emotions connected me to English on a human level, not just as a language. One evening, I read a story about a boy who was learning a new language. He struggled, he failed, but he never gave up. As I read, I felt like the story was about me. I could feel his fear, his hope, and his joy. That night, I promised myself never to stop learning. Gave me courage because I realized that my journey was part of a bigger human story, the story of people everywhere trying to connect through language. If you want to start reading in English, begin small. Don't choose a big novel on the first day. Choose something simple, something you enjoy. Graded readers are perfect because they are written for learners. You can also read short stories, simple articles online, or even English subtitles of your favorite shows. The most important thing is to enjoy the process. When you enjoy the story, you forget the hard work, and learning happens naturally. Reading also helps with writing. When you read often, you see how sentences are built, how words are used, and how ideas are connected. Later, when you write, you naturally follow the patterns you have seen. This is why many good writers are also great readers. Reading fills your mind with language, and writing lets you share it back with the world. So remember this: reading is not a test. It is not about checking every word in the dictionary. It is about building a relationship with English through stories, ideas, and emotions. When you read, you are not only learning the language, you are building a bridge between yourself and the world. For me, reading was the moment when English stopped being just a subject at school and became a living part of my life. Each page turned into a small step forward. Each story gave me new energy, and with every book, I grew not only in English but also as a person. Reading truly brings new worlds, and those worlds are waiting for you. You don't need to be perfect to open the first page. All you need is curiosity. Open a book, even a small one, and let the journey begin. Chapter 4: Writing for Yourself. After listening, speaking, and reading, I discovered another skill that slowly became my secret strength: writing. Many learners think writing is difficult or boring. They believe it is only for school or exams. But I learned something very different. Writing is not just about rules, spelling, or grammar. Writing is about expressing yourself, capturing your thoughts, and talking to yourself on paper. It is about building a bridge between your mind and the English language. When I first tried to write in English, I felt nervous. My sentences were short and broken. I made many mistakes and my vocabulary was very small. Sometimes I wanted to stop because I thought my writing looked childish. But then I asked myself, why am I writing? Am I writing for teachers to judge me? Or am I writing for myself? The answer was clear. I was writing for me. I wanted to use English as my own tool, my own voice. Once I realized that, I stopped worrying about being perfect. I decided to write freely, just as I spoke freely, even with mistakes. In the beginning, I kept a small notebook. Every night before bed, I wrote 3 simple sentences in English. They were about my day. I am tired today. I went to the market. I saw my friend. These sentences were not long or complicated, but they were real. They described my life, and because of that, they felt important. Slowly, those 3 sentences turned into 5, then 10, and soon I was writing small paragraphs. One of the first spikes in my writing journey came when I reread my old notebook after a few months. At the start, my sentences were short and full of mistakes. But later, I saw that my sentences had grown longer, my words had become stronger, and my thoughts were more clear. I could see my own progress with my eyes. That moment gave me so much motivation. Writing showed me something that listening and speaking could not show so clearly. It showed me my growth on paper. Writing also helped me organize my thoughts. When I spoke, my words came quickly and sometimes disappeared. But when I wrote, my words stayed. I could look at them, change them, and improve them. Writing made my thinking slower but deeper. It gave me time to explore my ideas in English. For example, when I was happy, I wrote about it. When I was sad, I wrote about it too. Writing became my friend, my safe space, where I could express my feelings in another language. I also discovered that writing improves memory. When I learned a new word, I wrote it in a sentence. Later, when I read that sentence again, I remembered the word more easily. Writing is like planting seeds in your mind. Each word you write is a seed, and over time, those seeds grow into strong trees of knowledge. Another fun way I practiced writing was by sending small messages in English to my friends. At first, I felt shy. What if I wrote something wrong? But my friends encouraged me, and they did not care about mistakes. Each time I sent a message, I felt braver. Soon, writing short texts in English became natural. It was not homework anymore. It was real communication. One special moment I will never forget happened when I wrote my first short story in English. It was only 1 page long, about a boy and his cat. The grammar was not perfect, but the story had a beginning, middle, and end. When I finished, I felt proud. I had created something in English that did not exist before. That little story was mine, and it gave me a new confidence. From that day, I believed that writing was not only for advanced learners, it was for anyone who had a story to tell. Writing also connects you to reading. The more you read, the more you naturally write better. Sometimes I copied short sentences from books I liked and used them as models. For example, if I read, "The sun was shining brightly," I tried to write my own sentence, "The moon was shining softly." This exercise made writing easier and helped me learn style. For beginners, the key is to start small. You don't need to write long essays. You can write a diary, a shopping list, a thank you note, or even captions for your photos in English. The size does not matter. The habit matters. Writing every day, even just a few words, builds your muscles slowly. And just like speaking, the more you write, the less afraid you feel. Some learners fear making mistakes in writing because mistakes are visible. But remember this: mistakes are your teachers. When you see a mistake on paper, you can fix it, and next time you will not repeat it. Without writing, mistakes stay hidden. Writing makes them clear, and that is how you grow. Over time, writing became not only practice, but also reflection. When I looked back at my old writings, I could see my journey. I could see my old fears, my small victories, my new words. It was like a mirror showing me how far I had come. Reading my old words gave me strength to keep moving forward. So here is the lesson. Writing is not only for exams or tests. Writing is for you. It is your private teacher, your personal record, and your emotional friend. Write freely, write simply, and write often. Do not wait for the perfect word. Use the words you have today, and tomorrow you will have more. Writing for yourself is like building a small garden. At first, it looks empty, but every day you plant a few seeds. One day you look back, and the garden is full of flowers. That is the beauty of writing in English. It grows with you, and it grows inside you. Chapter 5. Practice every day. By the time I had learned to listen, speak, read, and write, I realized something very important. English is not about talent, it is about practice. Some people believe that learning a language is like magic. You study for a short time, and suddenly you become fluent. But the truth is very different. Language is like a plant. If you water it every day, it grows. If you forget to water it, it slowly dies. That is why daily practice is the real secret to learning English. When I first started, I was not consistent. Some days I listened, some days I spoke, and other days I did nothing. Weeks passed, and my English stayed the same. I felt frustrated and asked myself, why am I not improving? The answer came when I remembered how children learn. A child does not learn a new language once a week. They hear and use it every single day. That was when I understood. Small daily practice is more powerful than long study once in a while. So I decided to make English part of my daily life. I created a simple plan. Listen for 10 minutes, speak for 5 minutes, read a few pages, and write a short paragraph every single day. At first, it felt like a lot, but soon it became natural, like brushing my teeth or eating breakfast. And slowly, my English began to grow stronger. One spike moment came when I realized I was practicing without even noticing. For example, I listened to English songs while cleaning my room. I spoke to myself in English while cooking. I read short articles during bus rides. I wrote notes to myself before sleeping. These small moments added up. It was not about one big effort. It was about many small steps, repeated daily. The magic of daily practice is not speed, but habit. When you practice every day, English becomes part of your routine. Your brain begins to expect it, just like it expects food or sleep. If you skip a day, you feel something is missing. That is when you know English is no longer just study, it is part of your life. In the beginning, you may think, but I don't have time. The truth is, you do not need hours. Even 10 or 15 minutes is enough if you do it daily. The key is consistency. Imagine two learners. One studies English for 5 hours on Sunday only. The other studies for 15 minutes every day. After 1 month, who is better? The second learner. Why? Because their brain sees English daily, remembers it daily, and keeps it alive. I also discovered that daily practice keeps fear away. When I practiced speaking only once a week, I felt nervous every time. But when I spoke every day, even for a few minutes, my fear disappeared. My mouth got used to English, and my confidence grew. Practice creates comfort, and comfort kills fear. Another lesson I learned was to mix practice with fun. If practice feels like punishment, you will not continue. So I chose things I enjoyed. I listened to funny podcasts, read stories I liked, and watched movies with subtitles. I wrote about my hobbies, my dreams, and even my favorite food. Because I enjoyed it, I never wanted to stop. Learning became pleasure, not pressure. One beautiful example is when I started to read a few pages of an English story before bed. It was a small habit, but it became special. Every night, I ended my day with English. Sometimes I understood a lot, sometimes only a little, but every night I practiced. After a few weeks, I noticed that my reading speed had improved. I could finish more pages, and I felt proud. That simple bedtime practice gave me a sense of progress and peace. Daily practice also taught me patience. Sometimes I wanted fast results, but English does not work that way. Some days I felt no improvement, but when I looked back after a few months, I could see how far I had come. Daily practice is like climbing a mountain. You do not see the top right away, but every step takes you higher. One day, you turn around and realize you are far from where you started. I also learned the importance of tracking my practice. I used a small calendar and put a mark each day I practiced. Seeing those marks made me proud, and I did not want to break the chain. It became a game with myself. Can I practice every day this week? Can I make a line of 7 marks? This small trick kept me motivated, and it worked better than waiting for big results. The truth is, daily practice changes not only your English, but also your mind. It teaches discipline, patience, and focus. It shows you that success is not about luck, it is about what you do every day. English becomes not a dream for the future, but a habit in the present. So, if you want to grow in English, do not wait for tomorrow. Start today. Practice a little, but do it daily. Listen to one song, speak one sentence, read one page, write one line. Do not worry about mistakes. Do not worry about speed. Just keep going. Daily practice is like building a house. Each day you add one small brick. At first it looks like nothing, but one day you stand back and see a beautiful home built by your own hands. That home is your English, strong and ready to support your dreams. Chapter 6. Confidence for Life. After learning to listen, speak, read, write, and practice every day, I discovered the most important lesson of all: confidence. Confidence is not just about English, it is about life. Without confidence, you can know many words, but never use them. Without confidence, you can have many books, but never open your mouth. Confidence is the bridge between learning and living. And once you build this bridge, English becomes part of who you are, not just something you study. I still remember the first time I felt real confidence in English. It was not in a classroom. It was not during an exam. It was in a small cafe where a tourist asked me for directions. Normally, I would panic, but that day I smiled and answered calmly. I said, "Go straight, then turn right." The museum is near the park. The tourist understood me and thanked me. I felt proud. I realized that confidence is not about perfect grammar. It is about using the English you have right now to connect with people. Confidence grows slowly, like a tree. At first, it is a small seed. You plant it by trying, by speaking one sentence, by writing one paragraph, by reading one page. Each time you try, the seed grows. Each small success adds water and sunlight. Soon, your tree becomes strong, and it protects you from fear. One of the biggest spikes in my journey came when I stopped comparing myself to others. Before, I always thought, "He speaks better than me. She knows more words than me." These thoughts killed my confidence. But then I realized, my journey is my own. I do not need to be better than anyone else. I only need to be better than I was yesterday. Once I understood this, my confidence grew faster. I focused on my own progress, not on competition. Confidence also came when I accepted mistakes as part of the process. Before, every time I made a mistake, I felt embarrassed. But one day, while speaking to a friend, I used the wrong tense. Instead of laughing, my friend smiled and understood me anyway. That was when I realized communication is more important than perfection. People care about your message, not your mistakes. This thought gave me freedom. From then on, I spoke with courage, even if my grammar was not perfect. Another way I built confidence was through preparation. When I knew I had to speak English, I practiced small phrases before. For example, before going to a shop, I practiced, "Can I have? How much is this? Thank you very much." Because I prepared, I felt ready. And when the conversation happened, I spoke with ease. Preparation is like armor. It protects you from fear. Confidence also comes from experience. The more you use English, the more natural it feels. At first, speaking feels like climbing a mountain. But after many tries, it feels like walking down the street. Confidence is built by action, not by waiting. If you wait until you feel ready, you will wait forever. But if you take action today, confidence will come tomorrow. I also found that confidence in English gave me confidence in life. Each time I succeeded in English, I believed in myself more. If I could learn a language, then I could face other challenges too. English taught me patience, courage, and persistence, qualities that helped me in school, in work, and in relationships. Learning English was not only about language, it was about building a stronger version of myself. One of my favorite habits to keep my confidence alive is celebrating small wins. Every time I understand a new word, every time I finish a page, every time I say a sentence without fear, I celebrate. I smile, I write it down, I give myself credit. These small celebrations add up and keep me motivated. Confidence is not built in one big victory. It is built in many small victories, repeated every day. And here is another truth. Confidence is contagious. When you are confident, people feel comfortable speaking with you. They enjoy the conversation, and they encourage you more. Confidence creates a circle. Your confidence brings positive energy, and that energy gives you even more confidence. So, what is the secret to confidence for life? It is not about being perfect. It is not about knowing everything. It is about trying again and again without fear of mistakes. It is about believing in your journey, celebrating your progress, and trusting that you are growing each day. Confidence is not something you wait for. It is something you practice. When I look back, I see that confidence was the key that unlocked everything. Listening gave me input. Speaking gave me courage. Reading gave me worlds. Writing gave me reflection. Daily practice gave me strength, but confidence gave me freedom. With confidence, English became not just a subject, but a living tool, a bridge to new people, new places, and new dreams. So let this be your reminder. You already have everything you need to be confident. Your words may be small now, but they are enough. Your sentences may be simple now, but they are powerful. Each time you use them, you are building a future where English is part of your life. Confidence is not only about English, it is about who you become through English. And once you find that confidence, it will stay with you forever, guiding you not only in language, but in everything you do. That is true confidence for life. My friend, you have reached the end of this journey, but in truth, this is only the beginning. You now hold the keys: listening, speaking, reading, writing, daily practice, and confidence for life. The next step is yours. Do not just watch and forget. Take action today. Listen to an English story. Repeat one new phrase. Write one small sentence. Or simply smile and say hello in English. Each small step builds your future. If this video inspired you, please subscribe to Bookish English, like this video, and share it with a friend who is also learning. Together, we can grow, support each other, and make English part of our daily lives. Your journey is real, your progress is possible, and your confidence is waiting. So start now. Today is the best day to begin.